Okay, Paul. So we're here to demonstrate our ServSafe curriculum. So to show you how you can maximize your output with your students to get success in getting those students to pass. So I'm going to show you a few features here that will get your students to learn much more efficiently, and also the tools that will provide you the necessary means to focus in on figuring out what areas the students need help in, so that you're not wasting your time picking out or trying to figure that out. Okay, so this is our student, John Graduate, and he's taking two courses. He's actually taking a culinary arts class and then a ServSafe class. So it's pretty typical, like most schools, they're taking more than one. So we're going to focus specifically on the ServSafe class. So in our ServSafe class, we have 10 chapters and 10 practice tests and four practice exams. In reality, actually, there's actually only two practice exams done in four different ways. So we got practice 1, practice 2, practice 3, and practice 4, which actually I turned off the last one apparently during a demo previously. But basically, practice 1 and practice 2 are two versions of the ServSafe exam designed for 90 minutes, and practice 3 is version 1 broken into 45-minute sections, and practice 4, A and B, is practice 2 broken up into two 45-minute sections. So this is designed for so that schools like secondary schools can use this in a shorter time constraint. But the other thing is, because these are available, some teachers say do practice 1, and if you don't do well, do practice 2. If you don't do well, then do practice 3, do practice 4. Or in some cases, we actually have teachers say, hey, I'm going to make you go through all of them because I want to make sure you're going to pass. So it all depends on your teaching style and how much you want to make your students suffer. Endure. um, so basically, the way that our program starts is they have a student guide, which actually gives them a little primer on how the program works. It takes about 5 minutes to go through. Recommend that you go through it so you can have an understanding of what the mastery system was all about. And then we have our chapters. So we start with keeping food safe, then forms and contaminants. So in the forms and contaminants, we have our learning objectives up here. And then we have our concepts, which are basically pages of information. So we start with the big 6 pathogens. So here's the content. We have images, we have media. So if there's a video that corresponds with the program, you could play it. But the other key advantage is that all of our content is narrated by a human. So if you want to, if you don't like reading, which I think a lot of your students are in that category, they could listen to it narrated to them.
Pathogens and public health.
Okay,
There
so
are
there we go. You get the drift. And then they could have it read to them, so that if they're on their smartphone, if they're on their tablet, if they're on a computer, they could they could plug in and just listen away as they're riding the bus or something like that. The most entertaining audiobook you've ever listened to, ServSafe. So then there's that, and then so they go through the content and they read it, they digest it, they learn all the different materials, and at the end of the module or the chapter, they are taken to a little summary so they can understand all the important key points for this chapter. And then they also presented some practice questions just to kind of challenge themselves. But the real ultimate part of our program is what we call check your knowledge. So when they get to the last page, they could go to the next one, which will automatically take them to a quiz. This is a formative assessment that actually is designed to assess their depth of knowledge. So it asks questions about every single page that they just previously went through, or they could actually activate it by clicking on the check your knowledge button here. So here it is again, and it's going to ask questions about every single one of these topics. And what it is what we call our digital tutor, which actually has artificial intelligence built in. And what it does is it takes into account if you had history, the history of the student's ability, and it asks questions based on that. So after students are asked the questions, then they're going to give feedback. So this is the feedback page that tells them, hey, you did well on this page, but these pages you need to improve. This is one you did terrible on. So imagine you're the teacher and you're telling the student, hey, I just quizzed you verbally, and I noticed that you're really terrible at food allergies and prevention. You need to go back and really study that. These other ones you're okay at, so you should just go back and review it again. But you're good at parasites. You're so good at parasites, you don't need to spend any more time on it. So this gives the student a chance to kind of pinpoint what they're good at, what they're not good at, and work on those areas, which is what we call remediation. So they go through the content again, and they go back to the tutor, and they do another check your knowledge. And then the second time, it's going to ask different questions and try to determine if they actually are doing better. If they do worse, let's say Fat Tom, it'll turn red. If they do better, then it'll turn green and get moved into the master's section, and so on and so forth. So the student would do this multiple times, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, to go through that remediation. So you can see that that page on parasites is missing here because I previously tested out of that. So if I want it back, I turn on the remediation mode or turn it off, and you can see that page is back. So this list will start shrinking down as the student masters the content, which is really awesome because that gives the students what we call a gamified learning environment, which then gives them some progress to see that they're actually learning and they're knocking off these chapters or these concepts as they're going through the program. And then they get awards and stuff like that every time they do it. So that's one of our major features, is that this feedback system helps students pinpoint what they need to know or what they need to study, and so they can become better at it. So that combined with the audio component, the engagement component, makes it so that they have a higher likelihood of getting through materials and passing the ServSafe exam when they're done. And then when they finish this unit, then they would go back to the main menu here, and then they would say, okay, let's take this test, and then hopefully this will be green before I take the test. And I took this test and I got 25%. Okay, I'm not a good student. So this because I'm just goofing off. But in a normal situation, they would have a higher score. So let's look at a normal situation. So you're the teacher, and you look at your class and you go, okay, so how's my class doing overall? So these columns represent the modules. So this is keeping food safe, and 4, this is forms and contaminants. The colors represent their overall mastery. So you see that these students are doing pretty well. The green ones, these students are doing okay. That means that they have room for improvement. But the cool thing about this grade screen is that it gives you an overview as to how your classes are doing overall. So that if you need to, you can call special attention to your class if needed. So let's say weeks have gone on and you go, okay, 6 is good, hygiene, most people are green here, so I don't need to worry about that. But over here, 16, food safety management, we have 1 green and more yellows. So therefore, maybe I need to go back and revisit that content again and kind of spend a little more time talking through that information, because I just received feedback that overall, my students aren't doing very well here. So that helps me focus on that aspect. So that's a good indicator for that. These numbers here are how the students performed in the actual practice tests. So you can see we got certain percentages, 100%, 80%, and so on and so forth. And over here, we at column 23 through 28 are the practice exams. So you can see how some students only did 1, some students do 2, and some students went ahead and did all of them because it all depends on how the instructor wants to enforce the class. But the most important thing about this readout is not only gives you a bird's eye view, but it also gives you a predictor. So these 2 columns here are what teachers pay attention to the most at the end of the class, just before they are going to take the certification. So this gives you your raw average score. So you can see that overall the average is good for most students. But then over here, the average, this column actually should be labeled and call it engagement or effort. So if this bar is low, that means they're not putting enough effort in. And if it's yellow, that means they're not doing very well, as opposed to these green ones. So Chelsea and Sheila, you look at this and you go, hey, Chelsea, Sheila, you're going to pass with flying colors. I'm confident that you're going to make it through, and you're probably going to get a really high score. Whereas Bobby, Ty, and maybe even Andrew, you need to go back and work on it. So I don't think you're prepared for this. You might need some extra help. So if you need some extra tutoring, come see me after hours. I'll be able to help you or whatever before the exam. So these 2 columns actually, when our teachers put this to the test, we're about 90% accurate in our predictions. So if you read these columns properly and look at all the rest of this data, this gives you the information that you need to give proper diagnostics into how their students are going to perform, which is actually how we get some schools up to 100% pass rate on the first try, because you just tell them you're not ready until you see that they're ready, and then they go, and then they pass the test. So we even get middle schoolers to pass the test. We have lots of
yellow.
Yeah.
If they're in the yellow, they still have to try harder. When you get to 90,
Yes.
that's where it's green, right?
Well, it's not, the percentage is not indicative.
Okay.
These are two separate columns.
Okay.
This is effort and this is test scores. So,
okay, I see what you mean.
Okay, so actually it's pretty corollary, because if you have a high test score, you're going to have pretty high effort.
Right.
Like here we have Terry with a pretty high test score, or actually Alita, but then not enough effort. So like, you know,
Right.
so we need
I
them
see
to
what
get
you
into
mean.
it more. So yeah, so once you learn how to read it, you're going to get really good at predicting the outcomes by the end of the year. So, and then if a student needs extra help, that's when they come to your office and they log in and they show you their module, and you say, here's my module, and you go, well, you know, obviously you need to really work on training the staff on this particular module. So let's just look at the page and talk through it. And then you could also even pull up even further diagnostics and see how they answered the questions for that particular topic. And you could go over what they got wrong, so that you could kind of like go, okay, this is what you answered. This is the correct answer. Why did you think that? And you can provide that extra attention to get them to pass if necessary. Fortunately, only 10% of the students out there really need that extra attention, but you know who those are. And now you can provide that extra attention to those students as needed, and let the rest of the ones sail through without any problems. So this is the diagnostic strength. So the combination of the gamified learning environment, where they're leveling up, they're getting more knowledge, and they actually earn knowledge points too, which is another factor that is very key. And then this analysis tool showing you the grades and how they're going to do gets you to be able to pass, get them to pass the ever so important ServSafe for managers certification, and so on. So this is an example of another class I could show you. This is a college class here. So you can see that some students offer certain levels of engagement, and you can see that this one here didn't do any of the practice stuff. So obviously they didn't test very well throughout the whole process. Whereas the ones with higher engagement with these greens tested much better. So here we have all these different options, and you do have the option to give them another chance to take the test again. So we do give you that. And we can see that, here, this student had a red. So, we have to go and say, hey, why are you still red there? And then the student might be like, oh, well, I'm just goofing off. You'd be like, well, I need you to work on it more, because I'm not going to let you take that test until you demonstrate some level of mastery. Although this is college, so you can't, you can't berate them so much. So you can only just encourage them, obviously, to succeed. But you can tell them that your chances of failure are pretty high, so work on that. These are my suggestions. So there's a lot of cool things that we can do here. The other cool thing is, I don't know if this is applicable to you, but we often have a lot of students with who are not English as their first language, English as a second language. So our program is actually what we call uses open web standards. So if you're familiar with other online programs, they lock it down like Fort Knox. Like you can't right click on something, you can't copy and paste, you can't do anything at all. We actually say, well, if you want to copy it, you want to paste it, you want to do whatever, go right ahead. We're not going to lock it down, because it allows us to do a secondary thing, which is take advantage of third-party plugins. So a very popular one that I use is what we call Read Aloud, which is a Chrome extension. So what it does is it takes text and actually reads it using a text-to-speech engine. So let's say I don't like the person who's narrating this text, and I like my own, so I can use this extension.
Food safety is the responsibility of every member of the organization. However, the manager is responsible for keeping up to date on all regulations in food safety.
So you could hear that it's kind of like going a little fast, because that's my preferred learning style. I actually I'm an auditory learner. I am terrible at reading. So that's why for the past 10 years, only read using this program. Because when I read text on a screen, it doesn't stick. So that's my learning disability. So because of that, I use this program and I cranked it up to like ultra speed. obviously. So let me crank it down to normal human speed, and you can change the language. So let's go here.
Food safety is the responsibility of every member of the organization. However,
that's good. But the reason I'm showing this to you is because you can pair that with Google Translate, which then allows you to translate this into, oops, I hit the wrong button. Google translate this page. And we can change it to any of the languages in the Google Translate library. So you can change to Spanish. Let's say you have a large, like we work with schools with a large refugee population, where they work with people from Georgia or whatever. So you can actually have it, or let's say Haitian would be probably a more common one now. But the cool thing is, like, now that's translated into Spanish, I could have it read to me in Spanish as well.
La seguridad alimentaria es
Okay, now that doesn't sound right because we have a British person trying to speak Spanish, which doesn't work very well. So let's have a Spanish person speak.
La seguridad alimentaria es responsabilidad de todos los miembros de la organización. Sin embargo,
Okay, so there we have it. So that's just kind of like a little cool capability that's like an added bonus to how our program works, is that we can translate it to any language and have it read to you in that native language to even further improve their chance of success in passing the certification. So those are the different aspects of the program. They just simply log in. Oh, and I pulled this up because this is like showing you how we customize our program to another college so that they're using it. So we can discuss that later. But any questions about the ServSafe curriculum as I presented it to you, Paul?
I don't have any at the moment. I know that the Spanish version is good because we are trying to start a bilingual program within the next year or two. So that would definitely be a advantage to that. But about the way you showed me the scores about the bars, the yellow, the green, oh, that's great. I don't know, Chef Clark, if you want to say any words. I know you joined us late. This is being recorded, so we can view. We can definitely view it again. I don't know, Mike, if you're there.
Or not. So what do you think so far? Oh, he wrote a chat. So let's see here.
Oh, did he? Okay, I didn't even.
Let's see. Oh, he says looks great to me. So I guess that's a big thumbs up. So what do you think of it compared to what you've experienced before, like with my culinary lab or other things you've done before?
Well, Mike Clark can speak to that in the last month or two with our competitor. I think this has a much better chance the way you explained it. I don't know, Mike, if you want to say anything to that, but I'm all for it. I like it, what I've seen so far.
All right, let's see here. He says very similar. Okay, cool.
So. Okay.
Yeah, I guess he missed the beginning portion of the narration and all the other stuff, but that's okay. But
you can go back. You can send this out to everybody that wasn't here.
Yes.
That they can view it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And email back questions if anyone has questions. And then, like I say, we'll probably talk as a group and make a decision if we're going to go this route. Which, like I say, right now is the only thing I have found out there that can supplement what Pearson's has done. And then again, without the hassles and stuff that we encountered in the past.
Yeah, and speaking to what you were speaking earlier, customer service is what we at KP are really known for, is that any problems are usually solved within hours, not days. So yeah. even within minutes, depending on what.
Well, I liked when I called you out of the blue, because this was brought up at a faculty meeting last week. And then Chef Reese gave me this contact, and I knew about this program, but I wasn't for, it was kind of on the back burner. And so I contacted you the very next day, and you picked up basically after I went through the 1-800 number and all that. You picked up the phone, which I was pretty amazed, because we had this conversation before at the cafe conference back 3 years ago. So.
Yeah, excellent. And yeah, and we are also very responsive to students as well. So but students rarely contact us unless it's something's gone wrong. But
I do have one more question. How
yes.
compatible is this with Blackboard, the Blackboard learning platform? I don't know if you're aware, because that's what
Oh
we
yeah,
use.
yeah, and we do, like, depending on what level of integration you have. But the thing with Blackboard is that most teachers who use our program use us in tandem with Blackboard, so that
Okay.
because the reason why is because when we exist, you just link to us, and then the students will log in. And the best part is that there's no technology restrictions, so they could use a smartphone as that's 5 years old and still use us, where because our technology is designed to scale down and scale back. And then so when it comes to that level of integration, you'll like the way that we approach it.
So I would like something on that, if you could, how we integrate it, or how we should say
Basically,
upload it or have it in Blackboard.
It's not uploaded and directly integrated like you would think traditionally, because the reason why is because Blackboard doesn't have the technologies that we do. Well,
Okay.
it's because we have artificial intelligence built into our platform, where
Okay.
Blackboard is just like, here's the information, and it doesn't create that aggregate data set that we do.
So
It
we
doesn't
have,
have gamification as well. So when it comes to the integration aspect of it, there's other ways that can be done, which is like the test scores and whatnot. But that level of direct integration is not something that we do, because it actually is a step backwards in
it is, okay, because we have Pearson My Lab upgraded or connected to,
yeah.
they go to their Blackboard shell, and
Yeah.
then they click on Pearson My Lab and get in through that way. Now, again, we have some students that don't even use Blackboard. They just go right into Pearson My Lab. I had a couple students this summer that didn't, because they were having trouble with their Blackboard, so they went
Mhm.
into My Lab. So maybe this is another route too. I don't know, but
Yeah, it works really well, and we've
Okay.
never had an issue with faculty having issues with, because once you go with the way we do things, you'll be like, well, this is much easier. I guess is the best way. It's easier and less hassle than going through Blackboard, and that's why we have a much better customer service, because we take care of all of the problems on our end, so that there's no third party involved.
Mike had a
Yeah,
question here.
yeah.
What type of customer support does your company provide to faculty and students alike? I think you
Yeah.
answered that earlier, but you can go ahead again and
Well,
say
yeah,
that.
we could say excellent. So we have phone, email, and text support. Text. So phone is email is actually the most common, because that's what teachers just like to do. They just email a problem. But if you have a immediate need, you can always call, and myself or one of my team members will be able to assist you. Basically, we all work on the program directly, so we know it inside and out. And then, like you said, that's one of the advantages of going with I guess a smaller business. It's because we have a direct focus on this, so we're not working on hundreds of different products. We only have a dozen products in the hospitality field, all in the same program. So we deal with fires and we put them out very quickly. So if a student has an issue, they email us, but that's very few and far between, because students rarely ever have issues, because our platform, our program is designed to be, we use the KISS model, keep it simple. Because why complicate things with
Right.
more crap, because our objective is to get to them to learn,
Right,
not to make their lives harder,
right.
but to make your lives easier. So
Right. And your days of week,
Yeah.
hours?
Normal
mention
phone
that.
support, normal business hours, 5 days a week, email support over the weekend. We do phone support as necessary. If there's something that comes up, we do provide that as well. So you can I actually do give you my personal cell phone number. So if you have something that's extremely pressing, you can actually contact me directly, so that if anything comes up. But that's even though I've given my cell phone number to hundreds of teachers, I think I've only been called like once because something happened just before just before some sort of like major exam.
Right. Okay.
But that was actually so, and I was actually able to solve it within like a few minutes, or because it was like some sort of it was a user error, but I had to talk them through it. but so we provide all these options, and thankfully no one's really needed to use them, because we keep it simple.
Mike, Chef Clark says, what type of results have students seen by using your learning platform?
So the results that we see is higher retention rates, longer retention rate, because we're hitting them through the reading, the visual. You deal with the kinesthetic, but the audio portion is huge. So because a lot of our learners are auditory learners, they're not readers. So that's a huge aspect of it. So because of that, and also given the tools that I outlined earlier, we can actually get your pass rate up to nearly 100% if you read the diagnostic tools properly, so that they can pass the manager's exam. So that's basically what we've done is with our secondary, post-secondary, and actually our middle school clients, is we get them all the way up to nearly 100% pass rate. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, 90% pass rate, because of the different learning tools that we provide the student and the teachers, so that you can have success. So, and Paul, you've addressed that question before. This is for the ServSafe managers certification, and then you would then proctor it like normal and just purchase the test vouchers. So.
Right. Yeah, that'd be the only thing we'd be purchasing. The students would be purchasing your program or the card or access code or whatever. You have to get into it, have it at the bookstore along with the ServSafe exam voucher. They could do it through the bookstore. They'd have to. Now they can buy it online, but then their financial aid may not cover it. And so what is so the cost be $50? I don't know if our school would mark it up at all or not, hopefully not. But is there any cost to having this from our school, our end, like
no
fee or anything?
No, there is no fee. So that's the other thing is we don't assess any school fees or licensing
Maintenance
fees
fee
at all.
or yearly fee, or some organizations like last year during COVID, we're looking into having online cooking classes or whatever, or a platform through Ruby School, Ruby Culinary, and which is a great program, but they want $1,500 up front, and then whatever each student, there's a fee for each student. So that's what I was wondering, but there's nothing. That's great. So,
no, and that's our business model for everything. It's like, is if you adopt us, there is no food fee to the institution. We provide free consultation. And if you were to go the route of, hey, I want to have a class for a dairy and breakfast, we'll actually prototype it out for you, present it to you, and say this is what you would be teaching for dairy and breakfast, and then or saucier. So then you could go and say, okay, well then these are materials and no cost to you as an institution, but for the student, $20 or $30 or $50. And
that's doable. Mike, another question. Can students access your platform and the learning exercises via their phones?
Yes, this is designed completely to be mobile ready. So that means it's not just a shrunken down version of the website. Like if you log into a phone and you go, oh gosh, so tiny, you have to zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. It actually uses what we call responsive design, which actually reformulates and takes everything and it makes it so that it looks perfectly fine on a cell phone as it does on a big screen TV. So you can use a small iPhone 6 or 5 or 4 to tablets, to Chromebooks, to everything in between. So anything with a web browser. And we actually have students log in on their Xbox or PlayStation just because that's what they have. They're like,
Right.
okay, well, because anything with a web browser, which these modern gaming systems have, you could log in and do your homework on, which they don't like. But hey, no more excuses. Everyone has a
Right.
phone. Everyone has a gaming console. Even if you don't have a computer, they'll probably have an Xbox. Yeah,
Okay.
and yes, if he had just asked a question, no need for textbooks. Yes, we are designed to completely replace the textbook. So replace the ServSafe book, replace the Gislin book, replace the Pearson books. Our entire mission and reason why I started this company 20 years ago was because I hated textbooks. And I'm like, well, I want to design something that gets rid of textbooks, but makes it so much better and cheaper because technology is going to be the future. Now, this was 20 years ago. I was dreamy and starry-eyed. I didn't know what I was doing, but 20 years later, here I am. So yeah, my entire mission is to replace the textbook, but provide something better. So that's why we wanted to create something that's custom for every class, not just give them a textbook. So for example, like you're teaching a class and you're doing Delhi, you only need like 2 chapters out of a book, but the student still has to pay $150 for a book. Well, why not just pay for those chapters, which is only like $20 or whatever, so we actually do a lot of customizations with colleges that are designed to meet their needs. So we look at your syllabus and we go, okay, well, this is what you need for the class. This is how much the materials you need. And this is no cost to you, but this is how much it would be for the student to purchase through the bookstore. So yeah, that's my mission.
And that's really great because I hear the cost or the question every day, do we have to buy the textbook or they're so expensive, and it's becoming the future of what we do. And like I said at the beginning of this conversation, is we got to get our costs down but still provide the same level of service to students for them to be successful.
And if the cost of materials for the information is only $20, then let it be only $20.
Yeah, that's a lot doable than 200 or 150, per class session. If they spend 20 and that ends up being $70 or $100 for the semester for all their classes, or maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's definitely doable.
And the other advantage is, let's say a student just wants to take a class on making sauces. Why pay them spend $150 to buy a book when really the materials are only like $20 of the book. So it makes it better for the student because they're basically only using what they need. Like the commercial, only pay for what you need. So yeah, another question that came up: do students still need to access the exam vouchers? Yes, you still need to purchase the exam vouchers through the ServSafe organization, just like you do. We're only here to make it so that they can pass it. So we're the
and they're like $36 or $40. They're not that much.
Yeah. And the best part is they'll pass them the first try.
Yeah.
So you don't have to pay for a redo, which is which is music to everyone's ears.
Right. And that's what this is all about, is trying to make it more doable for everybody, get our completion rates up and make it better for everybody and get the cost down. That's kind of the avenue I'm coming from. So Chef Clark says there's $36. It's really inexpensive. Yes, me.
Yeah, it's not bad, but unless if you have to take it twice, then
but again, the idea here is you're taking a national credential that's good for 5 years. So, it's a good thing. $36 is not that bad. So
yeah, no, and especially if you're, if you ever worked in the high school level and the schools pay for it and the kid fails the exam, well, you get really mad about that.
Right.
But yeah, at the college level, say, hey, save yourself some money. Don't take the test until I tell you you're ready. So
right, that's really good. That with this program, that's what worked. And I did try this program with my high school students that fall, And, the sample program you let me use,
Mhm.
and it did work really well. We did have great success rates with that. We just never pursued it any further, that's all. So,
Yeah. Yeah, during lockdown. Okay. How often do we update? Almost instantaneously as the ServSafe editions come out. We're usually 1 week behind on the updates, so we wait for them to finish, and then we update our materials, and it goes live pretty much instantaneously. And we also are even more responsive. So if something changes in the model food code, we actually address that, and we put like exclamations in our program to tell them, hey, this was updated recently in the model food code, blah blah blah. May not reflect the ServSafe edition just yet, but we want to mention it. So there's so we're pretty responsive as far as updates, and that's the advantage of being digital, is that we can make those changes as the industry changes as well. So but yeah, I mean the gold standard is obviously the ServSafe book, because that's basically what the exam is designed for. So we want to make sure that that's covered. So
all right.
great.
Anything else?
Good questions. So
Any other questions, Chef Clark? I don't really have any. We just need to discuss this as faculty, probably at our next faculty meeting on the 18th of October, about 3 weeks from now. I would like to always run it by them, make sure they're clear, and especially the instructors that teach ServSafe, which our main instructors, Chef Clark and Chef Jack. I do it once in a while too. I've done it in the past. I did one this summer, so I like what I see so far. But again, I don't just want to make the decision and go with it. I want to get a collaborative effort here, collaborative decision. So we'll do that and get back to you, about like by the 20th of October.
Yeah, that sounds great. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach me.
Yep.
And if you want to call me during your meeting, if you have any pressing questions at that time,
Sure.
I could put that on my calendar so that I can make sure I'm available during that time if you need,
Okay.
if you have any questions.
We'll be discussing this amongst ourselves in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. So, again, this looks great, what I saw today. I'm sure Chef Clark would agree as well. So anyway, thank you.
Okay.
And if, without further ado, I have no other questions. Thank you for your taking the time to work with us and with your presentation today.
Thank you for the opportunity to work with your.
And then if you could just put this online, the recording,
Yes.
and then we'll send it out to everybody again in the email chain. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll have it up in the next couple hours, actually.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. Thank you, Nine.
And I look forward to working with you on our ServSafe program and hopefully other programs in the future.
All right. Yeah, that too. So, all right. Thank you very much. See you
Thank
later.
you.
Have a great day.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, good seeing you. Bye.
Bye.